Welcome to the Family Photography Marketing Podcast, where we dive into the world of marketing and help you take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Fiona, a marketing expert with 10 years of experience in the family photography industry, and in each episode of this podcast, I'll be sharing my insights and strategies for successful marketing to help you navigate the ever-changing landscape of digital and traditional marketing techniques. So whether you're just starting out or looking to fine-tune your marketing approach, this podcast has something for you. So join me and let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Family Photographer Marketing Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about my top 3 fall routines that help me stay sane through the busy fall season. So the first one is the pre-session gear check. So in my embarrassing stories episode, which was a while ago, I talk about how I got all the way to a mountain session and realized that my girls had taken my extra SD cards out of my backpack, and I was not in this routine at this time, and I didn't have an SD card in my camera. So I had to go running down the trail, found these 3 guys, all with DSLR looking cameras, got super excited. They all somehow shot film, so they had no SD cards, ended up getting a tiny SD card from this old man. It was like the demo SD card that he had from when he bought the camera, and I shot my whole session on that, and I had to cull as I go. I could only shoot 100 images total. So, of course, that was a wake-up call for me that I really don't want to be in that position again. So I do this thing where now I have a very specific sequence of steps when I'm getting my gear into my backpack. So every time when I come home from a session, my camera comes out, it goes in its spot, my card goes into the card reader goes into the computer. So that's a separate thing that everyone will do a little bit differently. But in terms of how I pack my gear, I go battery, which has been charging, into my camera, card into my camera, turn my camera on, do a system check, put that gear into my backpack, and while I'm doing that, I'm counting each item out loud. My 50mm, my 35mm, my camera, my extra cards, my extra battery. If the extra battery and the cards are in the camera, I have to or in the backpack already, I have to physically touch them. Backpack in the front seat, drive down my driveway. I have kind of a long driveway. Stop at the end of my driveway and physically put my hand on my backpack. So this all sounds really like a lot. But since that one incident, I've never arrived on the session without what I need. Now, that's not to say I don't lose things at sessions. I don't know if you guys saw my stories, but on Friday night, I had a session and my 50mm, it was at a huge park in Seattle, my 50mm lens, at some point during the session, exited my backpack, rolled out. I have no idea how it got out of my backpack, and I lost it. I couldn't find it. I looked into the night. So maybe I'll have to create a new series of steps to make sure that my lenses are actually staying in my backpack. But that's just to show that stuff can happen. And I'd rather do these things and have them in place than suffer the consequences of not doing them. So it really does work. And it's based off of this idea of habit stacking. So if you're already doing something, so you're already putting your camera in your backpack, then you can add 2 or 3 steps before or after that ingrained habit. And then after a certain number of times you do it, that also becomes an ingrained habit. And I learned that from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, which I highly recommend. The first habit stack that I implemented after I read that book was actually at the gas station. I once almost drove away with the pump still in my car. And so I created this habit where before I drive away from the gas, and this is another one that seems so silly, but it was a switch in my brain. So before I put my car in drive, I look in my rearview mirror or my side mirror to make sure that that the gas thing is not attached. And it was at first very conscious. And now I'm incredibly subconscious. I'm not thinking at all. I just do it automatically. And I've never had that close call ever again in all the time that I've done it. So that if we can get our brain on our team, then it can be really, really helpful to function more systemically to actually get things done. So my number 2 tip is kind of piggybacking off of the habit stacking. So as I'm editing, because we know that in fall, maybe when you have the most sessions, you have the most to do. So thinking about marketing can feel very much on the back burner. And so what I do is as I'm editing, if I see a image that is very, very, it like speaks very well to my ideal session, I'll pull it into a marketing folder that stays on my desktop. That way, all of those images that I want to market with are in one place, and I can organize it later, but like the actual images, because like I have fairly big galleries. So going through after the fact and pulling images is really difficult because usually they've been sucked into the cloud or they're on hard drive, or I'd have to go into my gallery delivery service and pull them out that way. It's just extra time. So as I'm editing, I'm pulling those like 10 out of 10 images that I love that speak to my ideal session into a marketing folder that stays on my desktop and is always accessible. Then after I get through busy season, because I'm not marketing fall generally, I'll touch on that in the last part of this episode, but generally I'm not doing a ton of fall marketing like right now. So I know I'm just setting myself up for success later. So if you wanted to take this to the next level, you could have a marketing folder on your desktop, and within the marketing folder, you could have spring images, summer images, fall images. Or you could break it up by location or however it is that works well in your brain, so that future you goes to market fall and you have a folder with all your fall images, and maybe during slow season you can go through and organize them by location. This just really helps set you up for success. And now it's automatic, like my brain sees an image, it's like that's on point, bam, it goes into the folder every time. Okay, the third one is before giving up the gym. So the gym is my like self-care. And it's funny because I feel like a lot of times when people are like, oh, I go to the gym and I walk on the treadmill or I go on the elliptical, it's like when I go to the gym, I work out so hard because I just love it so much that I can't even really walk down the stairs. But that is something that is so powerful for my body and my brain. So before I give that up, I have to ask for help. So before I'm just sacrificing it, I can't say, oh, I can't go to the gym tomorrow until I've asked for help. And usually, I don't know what it is, but something will come together where someone can help or things get shifted or whatever, and I'm able to keep that important thing on my calendar that's important just for me. And if you don't have an item like going to the gym or whatever, there are other little habits that you can stack into your day that during this stressful, busy time can help rejuvenate yourself a little bit. So this is a tiny one that I do as well. And I might have talked about this on the podcast, but like every day at some point in the day, I wash my face, and I do it very carefully. Like I am washing something very precious to me. And I'm very kind. I don't do that thing where I'm like scrubbing my face super hard and doing it really fast. Like it takes literally 45. Nobody can wash their face for an hour. I mean, maybe someone could, but your face would be wrecked if you did. But it's a short task that many, many people do. So I do it very, very gently and carefully, like I'm really taking care of myself. And during that time, during that face washing, I try to tell myself something really positive about myself. And it is so helpful. And it's become a habit. Again, it's unconscious. I just begin washing my face. And even if the rest of my shower routine is really harried or hurried, I never know how to say that word. Hurried. If it's a hurried shower routine, that moment is slow and specific and kind. So even if I'm washing the rest of myself like a crazy wombat, which also I don't know if crazy wombats do fast washing, but if that's how I'm doing it, the whole thing goes into slow-mo when I wash my face. So these sort of things then grow bigger and bigger and bigger and become non-negotiable. If you tell yourself that some sort of self-care during the day is non-negotiable, it becomes non-negotiable. That's just how the universe seems to work. If you say it's negotiable, and if you say it can be put on the back burner, onto the back burner it shall go. In past falls, I've had to literally give up the gym for like a month. And one really frustrating thing about going to the gym is that if you don't go to the gym for a month, even if you've gone to the gym every day for 10 years, if you don't go for a month, your body's like, we've never been to the gym. So giving up that chunk of time is really, really hard. And I've done it in the past. And then my resentment, you guys know how I feel about resentment, is through the roof. So another thing that I do is when I'm in busy season, sometimes my brain wants to overload itself with more information. Like I feel overwhelmed a little bit with my business. And so I start consuming things like podcasts or books that are like business oriented because I think I need to calm my brain with more information. And in the past, that hasn't worked. It's almost like the voice in my head is just talking, but I'm not hearing what they're saying because I don't actually have the room to accept that new information in. Whereas like winter Fiona and January, February, March Fiona is super receptive. I forget that in fall. So instead, what I did this year is I restarted the Harry Potter books on audio. So and if you don't like Harry Potter, that's totally fine. I freaking love Harry Potter. I have always loved Harry Potter. It is such a comfort for me. I feel like because I grew up with it, I don't know what it is, but I'm on book 5 now, and it's just, I have my earbudded instead of a podcast or a crime podcast. I have Jim Dale and Harry Potter, and then I'm annoying the shite out of my family because I'm speaking an English accent like 80% of the time, but that has been so good for my brain to not have any new input coming in, just having like a comforting storytelling situation going on in my ear when I'm driving to sessions or I'm editing or whatever. So that's something important to think about is are you even in the space to do the things you're doing? Are you even being receptive to the things that you're trying to take on? Okay, so since those 3 things weren't super marketing related, I'm going to share some recent data with you from my own business. So the fall sessions that I released in July, I've never done this before. If you don't know, the way my business works is the majority of my yearbooks on Black Friday, and then as I have openings, I post them mostly in my Instagram stories. And I've trained people pretty well that that's where you need to go to find out if I have sessions. And this isn't going to work for everyone because the Black Friday sale has now been 6 years in the making, and the openings in the Instagram stories have been about the same amount of time. So that's a lot of training that potential clients or clients have had to understand how my business works. So I just say that because I don't want someone to say, well, I started posting my openings in my stories last month and no one's booking them. You don't have enough data, which I said in the last episode. So this year I was completely unable to put any fall dates into my Black Friday sale because of my kiddo's soccer schedule. And I wasn't going to have that soccer schedule until way later. And I just thought, oh, well, I probably just won't have that great of a fall because I can't put these dates in the Black Friday sale. But I was very wrong because I released the dates once I had them in July, and they literally all booked in almost one day. So it was almost the same situation that happens for me with Black Friday in July for fall. And I saw in another photographer's stories, they did a poll. And the vast majority of her clients, now her clients are not my clients and my clients are not your clients, but she does high volume and she's not cheap. So I feel like that's a pretty good baseline because she doesn't have people who are paying, $50 for a session. And then she also isn't doing like high-end IPS. So she's kind of like touches on a lot of different photographers' businesses, I shall say. So in this poll, she asked a question and the majority of her clients want to book 3 to 6 months out. It's not that they feel they have to. That's when they preferred to book because then it's on the calendar, it's done, they don't have to think about it. However, many of the businesses that I look at through marketing mentoring are not set up that way at all. They're not seasonally strategically opening or closing calendars, or it's not clear when you go to someone's website or social media what they're booking or what they have opening besides writing in on the damn contact form. Sorry, I get it. I get that people want the control, but as a potential client, there is so much power in these online tools that we can use to help people understand when they can book us. If you want to do it with a contact form, that's fine. But I think it's still, if there's a 3 to 6 month out booking strategy, it's going to be a lot more powerful than just a website with a contact form and no seasonal strategy. So hearing that from the consumer's mouth that they want to book in advance is really, really helpful. So I'm going to use that data, the data that I got from this other photographer story, and my own data of the fact that my July booked up, or my fall booked up surprisingly fast in July, to in 2024 do spring and summer on Black Friday and fall in July. And I've noticed also that these last minute dates that I'm posting now, because I wasn't able to add every single opening that I had in July because I didn't know everything that was going on. So I've since added extra dates, and these last minute dates that you think would get snapped up really quickly are booking much slower than the dates I released in July. And I think part of that is I'm just now competing marketing wise in an extremely noisy environment. Like I can go all year without seeing an ad for a session on my Facebook. And it's like every day I see 4 or 5 now for fall mini sessions in my area, the photographers using ads to get people into their mini sessions. And now that I'm adding to that noise from the consumer side, there's just a lot more that they have to look at, as opposed to talking about fall in July. No one really is doing that. So I get a quieter marketing atmosphere. So that's something that you guys could also think about implementing. Sorry, I have to move my little paper around. Side note, I just want to say this. I hope everyone listening to this podcast knows this, but do not use another photographer's work in your fall mini promos unless you have express permission. One, because it's super disingenuous. I saw a girl on a local Facebook page to my area, and she had taken an image that someone took up at Rainier in the fall and said she was going to do those fall minis October 29th or something up at Rainier. First of all, that's going to be totally snowed in. So it's so disingenuous. She doesn't even know the location. And 2, this image was backlit, beautiful light, edited immaculately. There's no way she can produce that imagery. So it's just disingenuous all around. And I've had it happen to me so many times. So it's always okay. You may get a no. Actually, you probably will get a no. But if you're set on using someone's photography for inspiration, it's still not okay to use their image and credit them. You need to get their permission to do that. So I had a fall indoor studio setup that people kind of like went known in the photography world. It was my floral wall and a bench and a mustard like chunky knit blanket. And so many people stole that image and said they were going to recreate that setup somehow in their own studio, not knowing that the floral wall cost $600 to $800 for me to make and took me about 12 hours. So had they asked, I would have educated them on that and said, you can use it, but you need to add this disclaimer that it's not going to look anything like that. This is just a very, very basic inspiration post. So I just want to say that as someone who has had it happen to her before, just don't do that. Also, if you have studio Christmas, using what we talked about now, if you have studio Christmas ideas, you need to start talking about them right now. Like you just do. Otherwise, you are going to be in the noisiest. You're already in the noise, but if you keep waiting and waiting and waiting, you're going to be in the noisiest atmosphere ever. So I know it's work and I know it pushes you up against certain fear blocks, but doing the work earlier will help you out. Okay, I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you next week.